So you're dealing with a narcissist and they're crazy and they drive you absolutely insane. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, is they seemingly always are in control, or at least they want to have control over you. So they do all sorts of things to maintain that control over you, because control is a form of supply that they get. When they are controlling you, they get narcissistic supply. What is supply, you ask? I'm going to direct you to a video I did on Narcissism 101. I talked all about narcissistic supply, but basically what I want you to understand is that narcissists have no inner sense of value. They were traumatized at some point when they were young, when they were children, and I've also read things that it could have come from even overindulgence, but most of the time it comes from trauma or neglect or something that happened that caused them to have little to zero self-worth, so they have no inner sense of value. I've often said they're like the hollow chocolate Easter bunny that looks good on the outside, but there's nothing going on the inside. And as a result of that, they feel that the world is not a safe place. So they're not trusting, and they feel that they have to manipulate every single situation. So they live off of something we call supply. And supply is anything that feeds their ego. It feeds their external sense of value. So supply can be, money and big prestigious job, and having all of the trappings that feed people's egos, like living in the right place or having the right spouse or whatever. But most often, and a lot of times, supply for a narcissist comes in the form of something much darker, much deeper, much worse, and that is devaluing people, debasing people, treating people poorly, because then they have that sense of control. But every single narcissist has something inside of them that is what we call narcissistic injury. And something inside of them says, I'm not good. If you were able to peel it away in real time, in real form, you would peel away and you would see this tiny little scared child living inside of them. And that tiny little scared child, they feel that if somehow that they're exposed, they would almost die. They wouldn't have anything left of themselves. And so they protect that narcissistic injury at all costs. But if that narcissistic injury is tipped off in some ways, like rubbed on, then that triggers narcissistic rage. And as a divorce attorney, I have seen it many, many times. Regardless of whether they are doing the discarding or the other side is doing the discarding, during that discard phase, remember the relationship is love bomb, devalue, discard. And if you want to know more about that, check out my videos on love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. During that discard phase, you often see that narcissistic rage being triggered. And so that is one of the signs that a narcissist is actually losing control, is you see that rage come flying out. I literally just settled a case that, the wife, I'm representing the wife, the husband is a clearly malignant narcissist. And if you want to know more about malignant narcissists, check out my video on the most dangerous type of narcissist. He just would rage and just drive everybody crazy. They act like 2-year-olds having tantrums, but they're, grown adults. And so that they're losing control because they act like that to try to gain control back over the situation. Sort of like how a 2-year-old has a hoping that they'll get control over their parents that way. In a 2-year-old's mind, if I fall on the floor and I scream loud enough and I scream hard enough, my parents will give in and give me what I want. And so that's what a narcissist does. It's the same exact thing. It's really the same exact mentality. And so what happens is with the 2-year-old, if the parents keep giving into these tantrums, then the next time it happens, the 2-year-old goes, well, They gave in last time, so this time all I need to do is cry louder, cry harder, cry longer, and they will eventually give me exactly what I want. And so the same thing happens here. So one of the ways that you know for sure that a narcissist is starting to lose control is you see that narcissistic rage come flying out. Another way that you know that a narcissist is starting to lose control is that they start to devalue you. Well, obviously, you are a horrible mother or you're a deadbeat dad. They're going to start to say things like, to trigger you. One of the things when you're dealing with a narcissist is they're really, really good at reading people. That's how they were able to love bomb you in the first place, especially if it's been a romantic relationship. Let's say it's been your husband, your wife, your spouse, your partner in some way, and this person has been with you for a long period of time. They really, really know what your weaknesses are. They know what's going to trigger you. So you'll start to hear them say things to get control back over you, and they hit you in ways that they know are going to hurt you the most. So, I'm taking your children away. You're never going to see them again. I'm not paying you a penny of alimony. You'll be living on the street. Food stamps for you, homeless shelter, things like that. And if you have seen a narcissist rage on and you know that they're just doing it to try to control you again, give me a not allowing it in the comments. When they start to lose control, they start to either devalue you by saying, I'm going to take all of these things, so they try to exert some kind of coercive control over you in that way, or they try to love bomb you and they go, oh, come on, you don't want to act like this. You're really overblowing this. This is too much. You should, let's just talk. You know that we can talk. Oh, how come you want to use that crazy co-parenting app? That's so hard. That's ridiculous. We don't need that. So they kind of go back into that phase of, maybe trying to woo you or use their charisma to get you back. So you'll see them using whatever it was that got them into their web of control in the first place. They go back to that. So what happens when a narcissist realizes that you refuse to be controlled? Well, first of all, narcissists need control because it protects their identities and their fragile egos. They are underneath very actually afraid of you. They're actually more afraid of you than you are of them. And I say that all the time. And I think a lot of people don't believe me, but that's true. That all that stuff that they layer on is actually just a show. I often say it's sort of like the Wizard of Oz. You know how the Wizard of Oz built that whole Emerald City and all that stuff? He did all of that because he was hiding that feeble, scared little man that was behind the curtain. That's what the narcissist is. They actually have very, very, very low self-esteem, a very fragile self that they're hiding. And they're manipulating others, and they use tactics such as gaslighting and guilt and shame and all of those things because they're trying to control their outcome, desperately trying to control their circumstances around them because they're actually very, very scared people. People who are sure of themselves, people who are confident, they're not desperate to try to control things. It's only actually very fearful people who are desperate to try to control. So knowing what narcissists are doing to try to control the victims or their targets will actually help you feel more educated, and it'll actually help you understand what's going on. And it will actually help you to be more prepared and anticipate what's going to happen. And that's part of my SLAY methodology, by the way, which is strategy, leverage, anticipate what's going to happen. And then you can focus on your position, and be ready. Okay. So anticipate is the A. And once you understand what's happening, you can anticipate what's going to happen. So understanding it will actually help you. So understand that they're actually very ashamed people. They have a lot of shame. I mean, you think you might have shame. Brene Brown talks about shame. They have more shame than anyone else. I mean, they are shame personified. They're like one big shame donut. So they use control and manipulation as a way to try to keep their kingdom intact. And you notice they build a kingdom around them and they don't really stray from that too much. Okay, so they do know exactly what they're doing and they are aware in some ways of their toxic behavior. And you know that they're aware because they know how to behave in certain situations. They know how to love bomb you to get you to do what they want in the beginning. They are aware of that. Okay, so what happens when they realize that you refuse to be controlled? We're going to go through 7 things. So number 1, you're going to see that narcissistic rage. I mean, because they have that narcissistic injury, which is that fragile self that they have. And once that scab is picked at, then that narcissistic rage is just beneath that surface, and that will come flying out. And that can come flying out in a couple of different ways. For an overt narcissist, you can see aggressive outbursts. And depending on how overt they are, you can start to see stalking or violence, or even threats of violence, threats of stalking, that sort of thing. For a covert narcissist, they might be a little bit more passive aggressive. They might make themselves into a victim, but that narcissistic rage will start to creep up and they start to be something more than what you might have seen in the past. The heat will start to turn up. So that is the first thing that you'll see. The next thing that you start to see, and this is, all part of that discard phase, you start to see the birth of the smear campaign. By the way, and I have mentioned this in the past, the birth of the smear campaign can start to happen long before what you start to perceive as the discard phase. Sometimes you see the 3 main phases of a narcissistic relationship. It's the love bombing, the devaluing, and the discard. And I've often said this before as well. It's not linear. They do go back and forth between these phases. And when you are going to negotiate with the narcissist, you have to understand that even in the negotiation phase, they will still go back and forth between these phases, because they will want to rely on using these phases to see what will potentially work for them. Even with the love bomb, by the way, don't confuse love bombing with true love. But I do want to say, you will see that birth of that smear campaign potentially start happening even before what you perceive the discard phase to be. They start embedding pieces of smearing long before the breakup actually happens. And so they might have started lining up flying monkeys or their army of people by starting to say things against you and about you long before you realize there was even an issue, because they realize, hey, you might discard them eventually, or they may want to discard you eventually.
So they start getting people on their side. And so they start saying things about you even long before. And by the way, the flying monkey may not even realize that they're being recruited. And I think that that's an important piece, that the flying monkey may be just being love bombed by that narcissist too. That's something that wasn't necessarily clear to me at the beginning either. You know, they might just be oblivious to the whole situation too. The other thing that I think that is important for you all to understand as well is that these phases are not necessarily just in intimate relationships or romantic relationships. The narcissist uses these tactics and interacts the same way, whether it's a business relationship, a romantic relationship, neighbors, friends, family, whoever it is, they are the same. They interact the same way, regardless of who they are interacting with or the type of relationship that it is. And what I mean, by the way, when I say they start saying things about people long before the discard phase, they don't necessarily even say, oh, that person is a bad person. They might actually even say it in a way where the flying monkey thinks that they're saying something in the spirit of caring. So they might say something like, oh, I'm concerned for so-and-so because they had too much to drink last night, or I'm concerned for so-and-so because of how they're behaving, or something like that, where it makes it seem like they're worried about you, but they're really embedding a smear. So it seems like they're a good person. So that's number 2, is the smear campaign. Number 3 is they might just do a disappearing act. They may just ghost you. They may just stop talking to you altogether. So, sex and narcissists. This is one of the lesser discussed, less talked about, less information is available on how narcissists actually use sex to control their victims. But it is absolutely happening, and it's something that we should be discussing more. In fact, sex is one of the most common ways that narcissists use to gaslight their victims. It's highly personal, it's very insidious, extremely toxic. Nobody knows what's happening because it's happening behind closed doors. So it's one of those areas that no one's going to see, which makes it a perfect way for narcissists to abuse their victims. It's highly personal, it's extremely embarrassing for people, so people just end up not talking about it, or maybe they just actually think that there's something wrong with them, because that's what the narcissist wants you to believe. If you think that this is a really crappy way for narcissists to control their targets, give me a "they suck" in the comments. Narcissists use many different ways to psychologically abuse their targets. If you want to know more about the different types of tactics that narcissists employ for control, check out my video on narcissist manipulation tactics. Because sex is such an important part of who we are as human beings, and especially with your romantic partner, you want to feel attractive, you want to feel like your romantic partner desires you. And so, of course, because that's something that you want, it's a perfect place for the narcissist to make sure that they control you and coerce you in this area. So the people who are in relationship with narcissists end up feeling used, abused, discarded. You end up feeling less desirable, or maybe not desirable at all. What happens in the bedroom when you're in relationship with a narcissist is that your needs are completely irrelevant, just the same as they are anywhere else. They set you up so that you feel like there's something wrong with you, and you end up feeling ashamed. And it affects your confidence, and it affects your self-worth.
And it's something that ends up being so private and so personal that you end up feeling very, very isolated because it's embarrassing. You don't want to have to admit to your friends or your family or even to a therapist that maybe your spouse doesn't want you, doesn't desire you, or that maybe you no longer desire that person because of the way they've made you feel, because of the way they've made your needs completely irrelevant. When you're in a sexual relationship with a narcissist, they communicate to you the message that your pleasure isn't important, that only their pleasure matters. And they subtly let you know that if you want pleasure or if you want anything out of the romantic relationship, that you're being greedy, or maybe that there's something wrong with you for wanting that. But the bottom line is what's really going on is that narcissists use it as a form of supply. Because remember, narcissists have no inner sense of value. They have to derive all of their value from the external. And that external value that they're sucking from all the people around them, we call narcissistic supply. It's their oxygen. It's what they feed on. It's their food. Because they're constantly trying to feed this beast and layer on this external value to slap onto the fact that they have no inner sense of internal value. And they have no ability to care for another person. So if they have no ability to have empathy or care for another person, it does not make them good sexual partners, because they certainly don't care about your needs, your desires, your wants. So narcissists use sex as a form of narcissistic supply. Remember that supply can come in the form of, big house, big car, the best schools, the right friends, the prestigious job. But narcissistic supply can also come in the form of control, gaslighting, devaluing, debasing, cutting people down, minimalizing them, marginalizing them, and making them think that they're crazy. So here you are in a situation where it's the most vulnerable. When you have a sexual relationship with somebody, it's a very, very vulnerable thing. It's a very vulnerable position to be putting yourself into. And so whenever you expose vulnerability to a narcissist, that becomes an excellent place for them to go after. Because anytime you show weakness or show something that you want to a narcissist, that becomes an immediate place for them to target. They're always looking for weaknesses, always trolling, looking for ways to control people. And they can control people in areas where they are feeling vulnerable or exposing themselves or exposing anything that you want to a narcissist. That becomes a place where they can maybe get that from you. And so when you're negotiating with a narcissist, it's the same thing. You never let on exactly what it is that you want, and you try to steer them away from that because you know that that's the one thing that they're going to go after. But in a sexual relationship, you can't really play those games as much. I mean, you're in a sexual relationship, so you want to feel desirable. You want to feel like your partner wants to give you pleasure, and vice versa. That's the whole basis of a sexual relationship. But when you're in partnership with a narcissist, you're never going to get that. Just the same as any of the relationship with the narcissist. The sexual part is actually just one component. It's one more area for them to gaslight. It's one more area for them to control. One more area for them to make you feel less, for them to devalue you. But it becomes very, very personal. It hurts way down into your soul because you don't feel desired by the one person you want to feel desired by. So it actually manifests itself in a number of different ways, which we're going to cover in parts 2 and 3 of this series. This is such an important topic that I decided to do it in 3 parts. And today was just the first part where we're just kind of giving you the basis of what's really going on in a sexual relationship with a narcissist?
Let's talk about phrases that narcissists use to control you. There are a lot of different ones that they use, but the good news for you is that narcissists actually do use the same types of phrases that in all different sorts of situations. I mean, the one thing I often say is that they're horrible, they're heinous, they're toxic, but it's almost like they use the same playbook. They are actually pretty predictable in their behavior. Are there different types of narcissists? Absolutely. There are. There are covert narcissists, there are grandiose narcissists, there are malignant narcissists. And by the way, if you want to know more about covert narcissism in relationships, I do have a whole video on that. I do believe that covert narcissists are probably the most dangerous type of narcissist in a lot of ways because they're the most difficult to detect. A lot of times they're the stealthiest ones. They look kind and sweet, and a lot of times they paint themselves as a victim. Sometimes they're like downtrodden. Oh, poor me. They guilt trip people a lot of times. And so a lot of times the coverts are the most difficult ones to spot. And the two that I had to deal with that targeted me were both covert. So going back to phrases that narcissists use to control you, one of them is no one else will love you the way that I will, or no one else understands you the way that I do. No one else will deal with you. Basically trying to make you feel like you're so disgusting, repulsive, horrible, whatever in some way that you might as well not go anywhere else because they're the only ones who can, manage you, handle you, like you, love you, whatever. But yet somehow they love you, they like you, they deal with you, they manage you. But, you might as well stick with them because they do. But it's like kind of messed up because why do they stick with you and like you and love you or whatever? It kind of defies logic, but yet that is something that they often will say. So it's sort of like to get you to stay, because if you go anywhere else, you're going to be rejected. You'll be alone. You'll be isolated. So you might as well stick with this person who's basically mentally, psychologically, and spiritually abusing you. So that's number one. Number two is they talk in absolutes. Everyone else thinks this, or no one else thinks that. Like basically to try to get you to believe that whatever it is that you think is just stupid, dumb, ridiculous, not based in reality. If you're trying to make a point to them about something that you think, usually about something about them, they'll try to use this collective who the hell knows who. You don't even know who everyone else is, or no one else is, but these nebulous whoever's don't agree with you. They all agree with the narcissist, whoever these people are. But it's meant to try to make you feel bad. It's meant to try to make you feel like your opinion is completely discredited, invalidated, means nothing, and therefore you shouldn't have it because, whoever their flying monkeys are, they all are lined up with them and against you. So that's another kind of phrase that narcissists use to control you. Another type of phrase that narcissists use to control you And there are going to be several of these. We're going to go into the types of phrases that narcissists use within the gaslighting realm. By the way, I do have a whole video on how to shut down gaslighting, which you should definitely check out as well. But so these are the types of phrases that narcissists will use to make you think that you're crazy, because gaslighting is meant to make you think that you're crazy. It's meant to make you feel like whatever it is that you're thinking isn't true, to make you question your mind, to make you question your reality, to make you question what it is that you believe that you saw or you heard, or what you're seeing isn't what you're seeing, or what you're hearing isn't what you're hearing, or what the conversation is that you believe took place isn't what you took place. Your feelings aren't your feelings. That's what gaslighting is. So they will say things in the gaslighting realm, such as, you're oversensitive. So you're oversensitive is to invalidate your feelings. So if you are feeling hurt about something that took place, then they'll say you're oversensitive. You shouldn't be hurt about that. That's meant to invalidate your feelings. Another gaslighting phrase is something like, we talked about that, and this is what we agreed to. You agreed to this, don't you remember? And you'll be like, we didn't agree to that. We never had that conversation. We agreed to this, or that conversation never took place at all. They will change the details of a conversation, or they'll basically say that you agreed to something that never took place whatsoever. That's total gaslighting. You'll say, you said this, and they'll say, I never said that. I never said that at all. Again, that's gaslighting. They'll say things like you're delusional when you're trying to say something about how something took place, or how you're feeling about something, or your perception of something that's happening. You're delusional. I mean, that's totally meant to just say you're crazy. I mean, that's straight up gaslighting. Straight up gaslighting. You know, if you see a text message between somebody and a coworker, you know, maybe it's your husband and a coworker that looks flirtatious or something, and, you know, it doesn't look totally appropriate. You're just jealous. And it turns out maybe you weren't just jealous. Maybe there was something going on between them. That's all gaslighting. Those are all gaslighting types of phrases. You know, they're designed to make you think that you're crazy. Another type of gaslighting is in conversation, where you're trying to have a conversation with them and you'll say, I want to talk to you about, you know, these text messages that I saw. And they'll say, why are you bringing that up now? And you say, well, when would be a good time? And they'll say, oh, I don't like your tone. Well, I didn't raise my voice. Yes, you did. You just raised your voice. And now I can't talk to you because you're raising your voice at me. And now you can't get to the point of it because they keep interrupting you about that. Oh, now you just interrupted me. Oh, now it's about this. Oh, now it's about that. And you can never get to the actual point of the conversation because they keep talking about other things. And, you know, they'll bring up something else, or they'll bring up something else, or they'll bring up something else. Again, you know, project, deflect, lie, deny. If you've seen any of this so far, I'd love to see a totally in the comments, because I'm sure that you guys have seen some of this so far. Okay. And then the next kinds of phrases that narcissists will use to control you are what I call guilt trip phrases. Guilt trip phrases. And you will definitely see this with covert narcissists. This is so much, you know, because of the victim mentality with covert narcissists. I mean, this is the one thing that you always see with covert narcissists. And I have a whole video on the one thing you always see with covert narcissists. You should definitely check it out. So guilt trip phrases. This is like, especially if you try to leave a covert narcissist, you try to leave a narcissist, they might try to say things like, I would die if you leave, or don't leave the family. I would commit suicide if you leave, or you can't leave the family. Oh, I can't believe you're spending time over there. I can't believe you wouldn't be with the family. And so they'll try to guilt trip you, so that you don't do the kinds of things that you want to do. They'll try to make you feel bad about having a life or doing other things or that. And so they will use phrases like that to try to guilt trip you back into doing the things that they want you to do. That's a little bit more passive aggressive. And, you will see passive aggressive types of phrases from especially covert narcissists, you've lost weight, but, you still have a ways to go. Things like that, passive aggressive types of things from covert narcissists. It's like not so nice kinds of things. Like they try to say nice things, but then it ends up not being so nice, that sort of thing. But that's not phrases used to control you. Those are just passive aggressive types of things, but that's another whole story. But this video and this podcast is really focused on the phrases that narcissists use to control you.
So when a narcissist feels insecure, which is all the time, they try to exert control over other people in order to kind of control their environment. So it's a type of control that they put over a person that ends up manifesting itself in all sorts of ways. They actually start to, maybe want to know where you are at all times. Maybe they look at your phone. Maybe they control how you dress, what you wear, who you see, when you see them. What kind of car you drive, when you drive your car. I actually saw a situation one time where the husband would actually, check the mileage on the car before he would leave for work and see, if the wife drove anywhere at the end of the day. And if she did, where did she go? They might put car trackers on you. They might track your phone. They might have some sort of software that tracks what your emails are, what your text messaging is, things like that. I mean, it can get really, really malignant and poisonous, where they're looking to control every aspect of your life. What you think, what you say, how you breathe, almost everything. And then while they're doing this, they're probably devaluing you and treating you poorly, also while they're love bombing you and all the other things. But it's a form of controlling you that can go really, really deep and really, really far. But what they're trying to do is make sure that all of your world is about them. Every single thing. I mean, they might even be like, if you look at, happen to, inadvertently look up and see a person, they might say, oh, you want that person. They don't even want you looking at other people. They don't want you talking to other people. Sometimes it can get really, really advanced like that. So it can be kind of scary sometimes when they get really deep into this type of coercive control. But it's a form of narcissistic supply. It gives them supply to know that they have control. It feeds their ego. And if you want to know more about narcissistic supply, check out my video on narcissistic supply. It goes much deeper into what you need to know about narcissistic supply. In a divorce setting, how I see coercive control manifesting itself is when somebody chooses a lawyer, and they really don't want you to have a lawyer, because that now this is another person who might exert control over you, another person who you might listen to, another person who's going to be advising you, and you might be taking that person's opinion or advice over theirs, which of course you should definitely be listening to your lawyer if you have one. So, but what they'll start to do in this particular situation is they'll start to try to devalue your lawyer to you. So, they'll come up to you and they'll say, your lawyer is a bad lawyer, or your lawyer is too busy, or your lawyer is just in it for the money, or they just start to badmouth your lawyer in some way because they're realizing that they're losing control over you. And if you want to know more about what happens when a narcissist is starting to lose control, or what the signs are, make sure you check out my video on signs that a narcissist is losing control. But in a divorce setting, anybody who's going to start to try to have control over you, or that they perceived is going to have now control over you instead of them, is going to become the enemy. So they're going to start targeting those people so that you stay into their web of control, even as you're on the way out. Even if they are divorcing you, even if they're the ones leaving you, you start to see that happening. Okay, so let's talk about Operation Triangulation. If you have dealt with a narcissist in any way, shape, or form, then you have dealt with triangulation. Another word for it is flying monkeys. And if you want to know more about the word flying monkeys and all of that, go check out my video on flying monkeys. So this is a tactic that narcissists use. So remember, they need an endless amount of supply. They are supply whores. They must have it. They must have it in any way, shape, or form that they can possibly get it. Anything that they can have to feed that ego. It's like oxygen, food. It's their lifeblood. It's like what they breathe in, they must have. And they literally will take it from everywhere they can get it. So one of the ways that they can get it, and it actually kind of works out pretty well for them, because when they triangulate, they're getting the attention from the flying monkey, or that person that they're triangulating with, and it has the benefit, the added benefit, the little bonus sugar cherry on top of making you miserable. So they get both. So it's like so beautiful for them. They actually figured out a way to not only get supply out of you, but they can get it out of multiple places at once. Isn't that fantastic? So they get to have this other person adulate them and think that they're so wonderful. And you are over there going, what are you doing with this person? Who are you talking to? What are you saying? Or they come back and they say, I spoke with Mary over there, and Mary agrees with me that you're crazy, or that you don't appreciate me, or that you treat me badly, or how wrong it is that you don't believe everything that I say. And whether Mary said that or not doesn't even matter, because it serves the purpose that they want to serve, which is, making you miserable. So that's what they do. They line up their flying monkeys. It's a reference to the Wicked Witch from Wizard of Oz, where she had those flying monkeys like next to her, and they would just fly around and report back to the Wicked Witch and let the Wicked Witch know what was going on. Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion, they're just walking along the yellow brick road, all, innocent and happy. And there's the flying monkeys coming along to see what's going on and reporting back, just like the little minions. And that's what happens with narcissists as well. They have their little minions that are looking to see what's going on social media. And then they would go running back, scurrying back, and they tell the narcissist what's going on. Oh my goodness, they posted this, or they went there, or I saw them say this. And let's all scurry and figure out what they're talking about. And you're over there feeling left out, feeling isolated, paranoid, wondering what's going on. Then you go ask the narcissist about it. And they love that. love that because it's working then. Now you're worried. Now you're upset. They know that they got you. So, oh, you want to know what I was talking about with Mary over there? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Or Mary said this, or Mary said that. And now you're bothered because they want you to feel bothered. They want you to feel like you're left out in the cold, like you're isolated. And a lot of the times they use their special phrases, like everybody else thinks this and no one else thinks that. If you want to know more about the narcissist's favorite phrases, check out my video on that topic. But the whole point of it is to try to make you feel bad. And if you are so sick of those flying monkeys, say banish flying monkeys in the comments below. Just say banish flying monkeys because they really do need to be banished. I know when I was dealing with a couple of narcissists in my life, I had that situation, and, as long as you're still in the narcissist space, you're giving them opportunities to use their operation triangulation to try to get at you. And, the best thing that you can do, honestly, is just not react at all. Just act like you don't really care who they're talking to. You don't really care what they're saying. Don't even ask them about it. Don't even acknowledge that they had a conversation with that person. Because as soon as you do that, you're giving them narcissistic supply. You're giving into that. And it's funny because I kind of knew that before I even knew these terms. I had never heard of the term triangulation. I had never heard of flying monkeys. And to me, narcissists were like people who were going around bragging about themselves all the time. I honestly didn't really even know what a narcissist was. I didn't know anything about covert narcissists until somebody said the word to me. And that's when I started to figure it out. And by the way, Operation Triangulation is a favorite of the coverts. They love it. Love it. So if you're dealing with a covert narcissist, you're definitely dealing with triangulation, but all narcissists like to use triangulation. It's one of their little favorite go-to bag of tricks. And so if you know that you're with somebody, whether it's in a business setting or a personal setting, and they're trying to make you jealous, or they're trying to use other people to somehow evoke a response from you, then you're probably with a narcissist, and it's probably time to, head out the door and figure out a way to get out of this relationship. So if you were getting ready to negotiate with a narcissist, especially, any kind of difficult person, whether it's a narcissist or not. By the way, it doesn't even matter if they've actually been labeled as a narcissist. It could just be a jackass, but if they're extremely difficult to deal with, then, it's going to be the same, right? So let's talk about what narcissists can't control. I mean, one of the things that happens with narcissists is that they want to control everything. That's part of how they get their supply. And if you want to know what it looks like when a narcissist is losing control, check out my video on signs that a narcissist is losing control, and you'll hear all about that. Let me tell you, it's not a pretty sight, but they do lose control sometimes. But what are the things that they can't control at all? I mean, they need to be able to control as much as they possibly can, and a lot of what they do is trying to control you because that's how they get that narcissistic supply. And it really happens when you're dealing with them in some kind of a dispute or a case or something like that. If you're dealing with them in a negotiation setting, such as in a divorce or a business situation. I also have had a lot of people reach out to me that are dealing with narcissists in a probate dispute or something like that. So if you're dealing with a narcissist in any kind of situation like that, you're going to see their characteristics, their narcissistic characteristics go crazy. It goes even higher. It's like whatever they were before, now here it is on steroids because the mask is getting ripped off. They want to get to you before you can get to them. They want to be the one that looks like the wonderful one in the situation. They want to make sure that you look as bad as possible. And they just want to take you down. So, scorched earth litigation and all those terms that have come about, about people who overly litigate or highly litigate cases, all of those people are probably narcissists who've gotten involved with that because they want to destroy you. I mean, that's really what it is. And for them, it's survival. For them, it's like, in order for me to prevail, you have to be destroyed. It can't be that you nicely walk away from each other. I tried to do that with a couple of narcissists in my life. Didn't work. I mean, as much as I tried to keep the peace, and I'm a person who wants to try to, maintain relationships with people, even if we're saying goodbye, because that's what makes it, easier. You never know when you want to maybe go, talk to that person again or see them again. You never know. But hey, when you're dealing with narcissists, it can't be that way. They feel that they have to get you before you can get them. So that's why they have this ultimate need for control. They have to get that control over you, especially when you're in that discard phase. So one of the things that they definitely cannot control are your thoughts, the way you think. I mean, you can look at them and you can, think whatever you want to think, and they can try to make you think a certain way, but they can't actually get control of your thoughts. I've often referred to the book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It's because that caged bird, your thoughts, your soul, the essence of you can never be controlled by somebody unless you give them permission to. So one of the things that they definitely can't control are your thoughts unless you allow it. All right? So that's number one. The next thing that a narcissist cannot control are your emotions. And this is one of the hardest things to do because especially, when you talk about your thoughts, your emotions, things like that, they've worked so hard to get into your thinking, to get into your patterns of thought and create that trauma bond, that it's really hard to, it's really easy for me to sit here and say, yeah, they can't control your thoughts, they can't control your emotions. But I recognize this is a really hard thing to do and that you have to just learn how to pivot. And the first step in learning how to control your thoughts and your emotions and not allowing the narcissist to have control over those things is by recognizing that this is what's going on, by watching videos like this one and other videos on my channel and others of us in the field who talk about narcissism, and you can start to learn that this is a disorder. That these are people who are very broken. These are people who have been hurt. And, there's that old saying that says, hurt people hurt people. People who have been hurt, who have been wounded, they end up hurting other people. And that's what happens with narcissists. They were hurt at some point during their childhood. Something caused them to, feel that the world is a bad place and they have to survive. And in order to survive, it's me or you. And it's not going to be, me that ends up going down. So it's got to be you. And so they, have created this pattern of thinking and this way of being in the world that is a scared way. And they're very scared. They're very frightened little creatures. That's the secret about narcissists. You're actually the stronger one. You're actually the one who has way more of a sense of self. They attach themselves to you as a form of supply because you had so much value. So they then embed these thoughts into your brain, where you start to create these neuronal patterns of thinking that you need them, or thinking that you can't live without them, or thinking that they're more powerful than you, or thinking that they're smarter than you, or smarter than everybody else. I can't tell you how many people have said to me, I'll never be able to win because they always win. They're always more powerful than I am. They always get their way. And it sometimes feels that way with narcissists because they can ride that level of entitlement and confident that, that pretend confidence that they exude all the way to very high positions sometimes, and really getting people to believe that they know more, that they're smarter, that they're better in a lot of ways. But the truth of the matter is they don't feel that way inside. And the first step to really taking that mask off and really for you to distance yourself from the situation is by realizing what it is that you're looking at, realizing what is going on with them, and understanding that it's not you, that it's them. And so once you start to do that, you can actually start to take the emotion out of it and start looking at it as if you're reporting the news. And that's when you can start actually not even getting into the vortex of negative emotion, not allowing them to drag you down, drag you into the mud with them by staying out of that. And so, you just have to start it one step at a time, maybe just one encounter at a time. Like maybe just decide, okay, for this particular encounter, I am not going to get engaged. I am not going to feel any emotion about this. I'm going to just watch what they're doing, and I'm going to just observe as as almost as a third party observer, and just try it once. And once you try it once, then you can say, okay, I did it. Look at me, I did it. Let me try that one again and see how that goes. And if you are so ready to have this and just feel like I got this, give me an I got this in the comments. So the last thing that a narcissist cannot control is your response to a situation, to your response to what they do. I mean, they can do whatever they want, and they will do whatever they want. You cannot control a narcissist. You can't, go get in there and change them. They're really, people that can't be rehabilitated unless they would really, really want to be, which most of them don't. I mean, most narcissists really will never go get the help that they need and really get the retraining of the brain that is what would be needed in order for them to become, like normal people. And so the best thing that you can do is start to learn how to control your response to a situation. When you are presented with something inflammatory, you can just take a deep breath and say, I can see that you're upset. I know that's how you feel. I acknowledge that what you said is this. And just, say it as if you are a person who is just observing. And that's where you're controlling your thoughts, you're controlling your emotions, you're controlling your response to the situation. And once you start doing that, then you will start to feel more and more powerful. And that power that you start to feel when you just take one little baby step at a time will actually start permeating the rest of your life. I've had clients that have told me that by standing up to their narcissistic exes, they've actually now become more powerful and more confident in business and in all of their dealings. They've actually ended up feeling better than they ever have because they were able to just start taking baby steps. If you want to take that dynamic and start shifting it around 180 degrees so that you start feeling like you're on the offensive rather than on the defensive, so that you start feeling like you're driving the ship instead of somebody else, so that you feel like you are the one in control and not just responding to what everybody, what the narcissist is doing. This is the way to do it. You just start taking one step at a time. And eventually you start to feel, wait a minute, look at what I've done. Oh my gosh, things have changed so much. And you'll see that the narcissist will start to change too. Because if they're not getting the supply out of you that they want, then they're going to start to lose interest. And they'll also start to realize that the things that they normally were able to do in order to get a rise out of you, they can't do anymore. So Your thoughts, your emotions, your responses, those are the things that a narcissist cannot control about you. And I want you to very much remember that. So why am I talking about quantum law and karma and all of these things when I am a lawyer? I'm going to tell you why right now. Because mindset is 50% of winning a negotiation. And intention is a huge part of that. 80% of a negotiation is won before you even walk into the room. Because it comes to your planning and preparation, yes, of course. But it is a huge part of it is your mindset. It is one of the most important parts of it. And mindset also has to do with your thoughts. And your thoughts are energy. And what quantum law says is that whatever energy you're putting out there, that's the energy that you're going to get. Like attracts like. It's just physics. Okay? And so when you are like forming a thought in your mind and you're placing that thought out into the world, you are basically placing an order to the universe. And you're saying to the universe, this is what I want to have happen. This is how I want it to go. So if you say things to the universe like, I'm never going to get that, he or she always gets their way, I can never win, I'm not even going to try to get this particular thing because it's never going to happen. The universe goes, okay, because whatever your little beams of thought are, that energy that you place out into the world, that's what comes back to you. Your thoughts are literally just protons, neutrons, and electrons and ions, all just floating around in your brain. That's all they are. You can't feel them, you can't touch them. As fast as they come into your brain, they can go back out of your brain. Let's just try an experiment right now. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think about a white picket fence. Just hold that in your mind. Now let it go. Is it still there? No, it's not. It's gone. And it's the same thing with your thoughts. The only thing is when you start to have beliefs, that just means that it's a thought that you've thought over and over and over again. And now it's become a belief. And now you just believe that it's true. But it's only because you've been thinking it so many times that it becomes like true to you. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily true. If you want to know more about power thinking when it comes to narcissists, make sure to check out my video called Power Thinking when it comes to narcissists, because making sure you have a powerful mind is going to be so, so important. So what happens when you're harnessing the power of quantum law is you're basically lining up the power of the universe to say, this is how I want it to go. It's almost like you're setting your GPS. And you know, if you're driving from Los Angeles to San Diego and you don't know how to get there, you're going to put a thing in your GPS and you're just going to assume that you're going to drive there. At no point do you go, well, maybe I'm going to get there, maybe it's going to happen, maybe not, you know, maybe I'll end up in you know, Oregon or something like that. You don't think that, right? But that's what we do with our thoughts. We go, okay, well, I think I'd like this to happen, but maybe it won't. Maybe I'll end up over here. Maybe I'll end up over there. You can't do that when you are harnessing the power of quantum law, because, you know, the universe of physics is such that it will respond to exactly what you put out there. Like attracts like. That is a physics law. And so your thoughts are going to beam out into the energy, and whatever it is that you put out there is going to come back to you. So the first step in actually beating that narcissist is believing that you can. And not only believing it, but knowing it with every cell of your body that this is how it's going. No matter what, this is the direction that it's going to head. I am going to receive this. I am going to let them know that I am more powerful. They are going to see that they are no longer the more powerful one, that they are no longer the one who's controlling me. I am the one who's in control. I am the one who's in control of my thoughts, my life, my outcomes. And then that's how it ends up going to go. The universe wants to respond to you. It absolutely is at the ready. It's like the soldiers who are just, as soon as you clap, boom, there they are. What would you like? But you have to let them know what it is. Because if you say, I'm never going to win, I shouldn't even bother to try, then that's how it's going to go. And the other thing that's really, really important is that you need to make sure that you are not saying things to the universe that's going to make the universe believe that you're not in control. And by saying things like, I'm a victim, I can never win, or I need a good lawyer, or somebody else has to help me, or I need more money, or all of those kinds of things. You're basically saying to the universe, I don't have it now. I'm not in control. I can't do it. The way things are now, it's not going to happen. And then that's what's going to happen. You've placed that order to the universe. So if you are a winner and you're changing your mindset to be a mindset of a winner, then I want to see I'm a winner in the comments right now. Go ahead, write it. I'm a winner. I want you to start saying that to yourself over and over and over again. That's your mantra. I am a winner. I recently read a book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which was really, really great, especially if you're a woman. I don't know, maybe guys would like it too. But it was really a good book. And one of the things that she said was her mantra in that book was, I can do hard things. And, you know, at first I was like, I don't know, I can do hard things. Is that a good mantra? And then I started to like think about it. It was like, okay, now, yeah, if I'm getting ready to do something that maybe feels like a challenge, or maybe I'm afraid of, then, you know, just say to yourself, I can do hard things. And another one that I read one time was a book by Elizabeth Gilbert, and I think the book was Big Love. And we'll make sure we drop links to these books down below if you want to check them out. No obligation, but if you want to check them out, you can. Anyway, in the book Big Love, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about fear. And she talks about how anytime she does something new, she used to say, oh, I have to get rid of fear. I can't have fear come with me no matter what, you know, I've got to figure out a way to like get rid of it. Well, but the truth is that none of us ever completely figure out a way to operate into a new world or a new thing without any fear whatsoever. The courage is doing it in the face of fear, right? Like the cowardly lion in The Wizard of Oz. And so what Elizabeth Gilbert says in that book is that she has learned to go, okay, and like have a conversation with fear and say, all right, fear, we're going on a trip, we're doing this thing, and we're going to get in the car, and, you know, I understand that you're going to have to come along. I would like for you not to come along, but I understand that you're coming along against my wishes, so okay, fine, fear, you get to come, but you definitely do not get to drive. You have to sit in the back seat. I'm driving. You don't get to drive. You don't get to navigate. You definitely do not even get to touch the radio. You don't get to play the songs. You just have to sit there and shut up while I'm doing this thing and I'm driving. So fear you're coming, but I'm driving. And I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful analogy. So if you want to use quantum law to beat that narcissist, the thing you have to do is start with your thoughts. Start like pinging into the universe. Remember, like attracts like. So what you ping out pings right back to you. It's like a boomerang. So if you want good things to start coming to you, you better start being very, very aware of the things that you're pinging out into the universe so that the right things start pinging back to you. And that's the way you're going to start the path of beating that narcissist.